What's up again for our another standard deck tech here at Mark TV. So Brothers War is now really on full blown because of this VIP access of the content creators or various of them, and I'm featuring this deck again. This was from, I think he is also a content creator. You follow him also on YouTube. His name is ReikoBoy. He has a similar name as TO, and he made this deck. It's called as the Azorius Artifactos or Azorius Artifacts, or we can call it as blue-white robots, as pertaining to the old Affinity deck back in Meridian. So we have another version here which we'll discuss today in the standard deck tech for Brothers War. We go with our creature choices. We have 25 creatures. Half of them has not yet been legal in standard, whereas we also have 6 instants. 4 artifact that is non-creature. We have 23 lands and 2 planeswalker in the form of Tezzeret, Betrayer Flesh from Neon Dynasty of Kamigawa. So we start with our creature choices here. We go with Hatchet Mechanic. This is an uncommon card, Fox Pilot from Neon Dynasty. It can crew vehicles as though its powers 2 greater. So basically, what its name implies is a pilot card is a good 1-drop and also an artifact creature that benefits from what this main deck strategy aims to comply with how it will work out. So 3 copies of this. Next we have a Network Disruptor. It is a 1 flying Moonfolk Rogue, but it's also an artifact creature. When it enters the battlefield, tap target permanent. I'm not really sure why it is, just maybe for the curve of this deck that will have an early 1-drop and also an artifact creature in compliance with what this theme. But tapping target permanent as it enters the battlefield, maybe for blockers or some of the relevant lands, maybe for that you will be able to resolve your more definite spells. That's maybe the purpose of it. But going with the aggro route, probably because of the 1-drops, since we have also 3 drops of the mechanic, and this will also fill out the 1-drop curve of this deck. Next we have also 1 copy of Patchwork Automaton. I'm not sure it's only 1 copy here, but if you check its ability, it has ward 2 that whenever it casts an artifact spell, it becomes bigger and put a counter on it. So it's also artifact creature made sense, but it's under the 2-drop category. Along with it also added not the Steel Seraph, but this one, the Search Engine, under the 2-drop category of a creature. It is a 2-2 cast mythic artifact construct, 3/2 but defender. But if you would spend 1 blue mana, it becomes, it loses basically its defender and becomes a creature that can be blocked. And if you pay 3, you go with, becomes a blue and has a base power toughness of 5/4, and activate only its ability if your search engine doesn't have defender. So basically, you would need to go first with 1 mana activation. After that, you'll get to go with 3, and then you pay the last. Probably the last step or level here is that you pay 4 generic mana and 2 blue to draw 3 cards and then activate only if search engine is blue and only once. So becomes a 5/4. Can't be blocked is also very relevant. It is also a good mana sink in the late game, which also gives you card advantage by letting you draw 3 cards. Only 1 activation is really relevant and maybe fair enough for this card, given that it also becomes a unblockable stick with a 5/4 power toughness. So we have 4 copies of this. So multiple that would also help them beef up your board. So along with that, we also go back with the Steel Seraph here. This is the white prototype version of an angel. It is also an artifact creature. 6 will cast 5/4 flying, but you can prototype it for just 1 generic mana in white for a 3/3 version. At the beginning of your combat of your turn, target creature control against the choice of your flying, vigilance, lifelink, until end of turn. So it has various ways to be very relevant in most of combat matches, wherein if you need to go ahead to evade your opponent's blockers, you go with flying. If you need to be defensive, at the same time becomes a relevant damage control, damage dealt with, you go with vigilance. And the lifelink if you're going to raise up to your damage source, for example, since you will have them gain 3 life or 5 life depending on what scenario it may be. So 4 copies of this, so that makes sure that you can spend 3 white for mana cost on turn 3, or just go with the late game of 6 generic colorless mana to go with a 5/4. So that's 4 copies. We also have Damishi. If you recognize this Merfolk Wizard, it is from Leon Dynasty card that has not really gained the standard gameplay, but now that Brothers War has provided enough of artifacts, so we can have this ability wherein whenever one or more non-creature permanents are returned to hand, you draw a card. It only triggers one its turn, but it has its ability wherein you can pay white in X, return a land you control to its owner's hand, and then return target artifact or enchantment card with a mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So the sad part is that's only activated as a sorcery, but nevertheless, it's still a good way to do mana sink and do your extra lands return to your hand at the benefit of having to return any artifact or enchantment card equal to that mana cost paid to the battlefield. So basically, you're still casting out some of the cards that were left out early on or discarded to your graveyard. So 1 copy of that to make sure that we can go with the late gameplay. Now our main dude here is what we call is Urza. That is the Prince of Krog. It's not a rare version of this card. As you know, we have 3 different versions of Bursa. I think it was one was an uncommon, this one for a rare, and one for the mythic. Now for this ability of Urza's Prince of Krog, we have this casting cost of 2 generic, 1 white, and 1 blue. It is 2/3 and legendary creature again, but its ability is that you can go with artifact creatures you control that gets +2/+2. So basically, it is an anthem effect with buff. I think that reminds me of the anthem card again from Mirudin. I think that was some Scars from Mirudin card, where they also give artifact creatures +2/+2. And then you have this option to go with another mana sink source. You can pay 6, you can create a token as a copy of target artifact creature you control, or artifact, the stain artifact, except that it becomes a 1/1 soldier creature in addition to its other type. So it is also a good, somewhat a slow token generator, but if given that you can copy another artifact you control that has also some passive or static abilities, it can also adapt that ability, so making you benefit more twice for that setup. So the only drawback is that he's a 2/3 bait set. But if you can really curve out well with your creatures, you can basically turn your robots into huge attackers with the setup. So we also noticed that we'll have 4 copies of this to make sure that we can be consistent in the curve and have the Urza Prince of Krog by turn 4 in our play. Now last for their creature lineup, that's basically half of the artifact creatures that was added in this deck. We have 4 copies of Yuchen Frontliner. It is a 1 to cast 1/1 artifact creature soldier. Whenever the frontliner attacks, starter creature control is from on the turn. And the bonus is that you can also go with an earth. Return this card to your graveyard to the battlefield with just 1 white mana. It gains haste and then exile it at the domain of your next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield in an early sorcery. So it's also good attacker itself in multiple copies. You get the benefit of have these triggers to have your other creatures or another target creature you control +1/+1. Depending on how you decide the math of their combat, depending also on the blockers. But the good thing is that it can have a Zudu pump in itself because of this effect, having the free +1/+1 whenever it attacks. So 4 copies of it to make it sure that it will be consistent in those setup. Now for our artifact that is not creature, we have 4 copies of Bunkbuster. This is already a very relevant card now in the metagame, as most of the standard mid-range decks are using this artifact as their card draw, and also becomes a relevant attacker in the late game. What's good here is that with your creature lineup, you can basically have some hotshot mechanic to crew this to attack by turn 3, or have your non-relevant creatures becomes crew to pile up this vehicle to have a more decent attack on the turn if needed. Now for some scenario that may be board stall, for example, you can just pay 2 to remove charge counter on it. You draw a card and you draw more into your gas or any other spot removal you may have that would be needed for that scenario. So double purpose and it's very relevant. That's why you will have 4 copies of this in the deck. Now for our instance, you can check it here that we have 3 copies of Lawrence Escape. This is probably another version or the updated version of the God's Willing card from Theros. This has its ability that have target artifact or creature against hexproof and indestructible until turn, and then just cry 1. Absolved, it has quite a variance to protect your creatures. That's why it has 3 copies of this in the deck. And 3 copies will also make disappear. So this one would be a generic counter spell here. But I'm not sure if this would be the decent card, since I'm also looking at another common from Kamigawa Dynasty. This is the Disruption Protocol. It is a solid counter spell, but also does need you to tap an untap artifact you control or pay 1 in the setup. So make this appear, because maybe without a casualty you can sacrifice your extra creature to have a decent effect of this. But personally, I would go with the Disruption Protocol, since you would also enough double blue to cast it at the same casting cost of 2. So anyway, we go lastly with our Planeswalker choice before we go to the land distribution. This they have 2 copies of Deseret Betrayer of Flesh. It is 2 generic and blue casting with 4 starting ability. The first activated ability of artifact you activate this turn costs 2 less to activate. So like given this scenario, you can also check out the activation of Reckoner Bunkmaster. You can basically tap Bunkmaster for free because of the Tesseret's static ability that triggers for only for the first time each activated ability of an artifact you control is activated. So we also have this benefit, +1 loyalty. You draw 2 cards, you discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. And then you have -2. Target artifact becomes an artifact creature if it isn't a vehicle base power and becomes 4/4. So we'll also have some cards here wherein you can also have a network disruptor, becomes a 4/4 flyer. It also becomes a decent attacker with the Tesseret's -2 ability. Its ultimate ability though here is you have to get an emblem for a -60 loyalty, wherein whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, you draw a card. So it's still a decent emblem to go with that basically replenish your hand. But since you're going with the aggro route, basically it's more of a win more scenario, but maybe at that time you've already won a game and maybe overwhelmed your opponent with some of these steel syrups and search engines that are blockable. So last for our lands, Sardaukar Waste for fixers, Deserted Beach again, utility cards again with Iganjo and Otawara, 1 of each. Then also included 2 Raffin's Tower for an added mana fix. But aside from the basic lands, we also added another version, or probably our new version of an artifact creature with Mishra's Foundry, wherein it's an ability to become a manland, which also benefits the artifact creature boost from Urza. So sadly, we only have 2 copies here to make sure that our mana fix are still at a regular pace. Maybe if we would go with probably with a mono blue version, or mono blue with the white for Urza, we can have 4 copies of Mishra's Foundry in that setup. By that idea, I might be able to come up with a similar deck list soon, so stay tuned for that one. So last but not the least, our deck stats. We have blue source of 17 and white for 14, but our white pips is 10 and 16 for blue, with the average mana cost of 2.41. And just basically that's the tokens that we can use. So I guess that's about it for this standard deck tech with Azorius robots or Azorius artifacts by Sir ReikoBoy. We hope you'd like to try out this deck soon, once that MTG Online and MTG are open to do some playtests for Brothers War Standard. Let me know if you have any observation or any cards you would like to replace or upgrade to this deck. So again, thank you for checking this video. If you forget to like and subscribe for more standard Brothers War deck tech is coming soon in a few days. Thank you for checking, and see you in the next video.